Okay, and welcome everyone to the University of the Underground. We are right here into this very new practical series that is called the How To series, where we're gonna unravel some of the questions that you always wonder, such as how can I get my first gig together? How can I get signed? How can I speak about my passion project, which is this specific session right now? We're going to speak about how to talk about your passion project in public. You know, we're not all gifted with this idea of being able to speak in public. You know, how do we actually take on the microphone? How do we rehearse this specific session? And we have an incredible guest with us today, Jazmin Morris, who I'm going to introduce in a second. But as I am there, I just would like to say to all of you that I speak very fast and I apologize for this. But I will say to you that if I don't make sense, there is a live caption situation going on here, that if you don't see it, it should appear on your screen. If it doesn't, you can actually switch it on in your own Zoom. I'm going to ask you as well to mute yourself if you're not going to be speaking just yet. We're going to organize this session with like 20 minutes conversation where Jazmin introduces in her own answer of how to speak about your passion project in public. Then we're going to have 20 minutes conversation and then 20 minutes breakout room where you're going to disappear in the void of the internet. And meanwhile, I'm also here to tell you about an exciting opportunity that we have available. I am Nelly Benayoun. I am a brunette. I have a red lipstick, hoops, and a very funky Christmas jumper. And I'm sure, Jazmin, do you want to introduce yourself actually while we are there for accessibility?
For sure, I can do that now. I'm Jazmin, Yorkshire accent, which you can definitely hear, gorgeous caramel skin, short blonde hair, very short, and a nice big fur coat on that would look really nice with Nelly's jumper.
Correct. That is the match. And we were talking about we are talking about some opportunity that we have available for all of you as well, which is also why we are putting this out to session so that we can see you apply for these things. We are putting together a festival, the University of the Underground, and, Union of Justice. I mean, basically us, like Majid, Nelly, all of us. We are putting this thing together. It's going to tour around the UK, and it's an opportunity to actually get grants for you to make an immersive film, a short film as well, talk with the moon and experiment with AI, make a digital work, make a short play, perform, do some DJ set, be a part of an independent press as part of Moon Press, speak about your passion project, which is what Jazmin is going to tell you about, make some music, do some sport game or think about some future of sports, or have your costume funded as part of a giant convoy around the UK. Anyway, this was that. I'm going to drop it into the chat section, but the most exciting thing right now is Jazmin Morris. Jazmin Morris is the most exciting human you would meet for the next hour and maybe beyond, who knows, if you're lucky enough that she would share with you intel detail. But Jazmin is a creative computing artist. You're also an educator, and you're based in London. Your personal practice and research explore representation and inclusivity within technology. You use free and open source tools to create digital experience. I highlight issues surrounding gender, race, and power, and you're focusing on the complexity within simulating culture and identity. You're a socially engaged artist, and therefore you have been collaborating with a lot of different communities, providing workshop tutorials to actually teach people as well in your community how to experiment with tech. You're a woman of so many fantastic talents. And we're so grateful to have you with us today. Jazmin, tell us how to speak about your passion project in public. How do you do that?
Hello, thank you so much for a lovely introduction, Nelly. Really, really good to meet you. We've been emailing on a lot, but good to meet you. And thank you so much, everybody that is here. This looks like a lovely group. And for those of you that have been here all day or for as long as this has been going on, I hope you're enjoying it. And if you've just joined now, then welcome. I am Jazmin, and that was a lovely introduction. So yeah, I've got a little presentation for you. So as Nelly said, I've got a whole practice that does not really concern public speaking. However, it really does now. I do a lot of talks. This one is definitely the most meta talk that I've done because I'm doing a public talk on how to public talk, which is interesting. But usually I do talks about internet equality. I do talks about my practice. I go to conferences and fight for internet equality. And I also lecture a lot, which is a little bit different. But I think being an educator and being a lecturer does definitely like involve an element of public speaking. So I think because of all of that, I felt really good to deliver this talk and share some of my tips and tricks with you and my experience. Sorry. That was a good example of things go wrong sometimes and it's totally fine. So that was really good that happened. But yeah, I have got a presentation for you that I am going to try and fly through. As Nelly said, though, I also do speak a little bit quickly and I've also got a thick Yorkshire accent. So again, anybody that's needing to use those live captions, please feel free. And yeah, I'm going to load up my presentation now and share my screen. Here we go. Can everybody see this okay? Just give me a little thumbs up or something.
Beautiful.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go through this as quick as I can. And then, as Nelly said, there'll be plenty of time to either chat as a group or go into these breakout groups. I'm really chill. I'm really happy to do whatever. Definitely happy to answer questions, share tips, share experiences, and then yeah, we can break out for sure as well. So let's see how it goes. Okay. So first of all, hello. I've done the hello. I think we've done that bit. So the first step is finding your passion. The talk is called How to Speak About Your Passion Subject in Public. Before we speak about our passion subjects in public, we should find our passions. So I thought I would start with a little bit on finding your passion and what that means. So the first thing I'd like to say is that our passions do not define us. We live in a capitalistic society, if capitalistic is even a word. If it's not, I've made it up. And I mean, it's not all bad. I'm sure there are some good things about capitalism. There are two sides to every sword. However, one of the bad things about it, just one of the many bad things about it, is that we end up working in overdrive, and it kind of becomes a social norm for your passion or for your job or whatever you do to define you. A lot of people's first questions for people these days after what is your name is what do you do? And I think there are some issues with that. Like not everybody loves what they do or wants to be defined by what they do. So it'd be kind of nice in some ways if that general narrative could change. However, it hasn't changed yet. That is how it is. And I just wanted to remind everyone that your passion doesn't need to define you, or what you want to speak about in public doesn't define you. It's one asset of many of your qualities and many of the things that make you human. So, you know, it's great if you're passionate about it and if you love it, but there's still lots more to you. And don't ever feel like you lose that by, you know, choosing something and pursuing something. Or if you are at the other end of the spectrum and you are not completely in love with your job, because not everybody is, and that's just how this vicious world works. I just wanted to remind you that, you know, we're multifaceted and lots of things exist beyond what we may speak about in public or what our so-called passion might be. So that's the first thing that I wanted to remind you all of. So the next one is passions can be specific, and it's actually really nice if they're specific and obscure. You might think like, oh, I haven't really heard many people talking about my passion before. You know, is it legit? Is it a real thing? And yes, is the first answer. There's a crowd for everything if you know where to go and if you know where to deliver. And specificity can be really good. And sometimes the reasons that you may not have heard somebody speaking about it, it could be because of like oppression or something like that. So maybe it's actually really important that you get your voice out there and start a narrative around it, or give it some kind of platform to inspire others, because we all need role models and we all need something to base our practices off. So yeah, just another reminder that it can be something really niche and it might feel too niche, but there's no such thing as that really. Okay. Another really good one is that passions can change. I would say in some ways that is the most important one, especially when they become really specific. But anytime, your passion can change whenever you want it to. The great thing, one of the only things that we have in life is that we are the curators of it, and we can do what we want when we want. And even if you have been speaking about a very particular topic for the past 10 years, and you want to completely change direction and speak about something completely new, that is so okay. Or if you feel like you're committed to something for so long and then all of a sudden have a change of heart and want to take it somewhere else and want to try something else out, it's so okay. So again, it can feel a bit like once we've chosen, we have to kind of make our beds and lie in it, right? And it was just a reminder that your passions can and probably will change over time, and that is very okay. This one's controversial. It's there as a bit of a joke. So it says there's no such thing as a professional. I mean, of course, there are highly trained people in society and highly knowledgeable people in society that, yes, we can respect, and we can respect their craft and their knowledge of the craft or the subject. And yeah, we can look up to them and we can learn from them. And I'm sure they have a lot of knowledge to share. However, what I don't want us to be is intimidated by these people or feel like we have to be some master or professional of something to speak about it in public. So what I mean by no such thing as professional is that really and truly there isn't, because who decides who is a professional of what? Often, if there is a system for describing like the professionalism around something, it's often done by a kind of like colonial academic way of decision making anyway, which doesn't quite fit us all. So even in society, if we do see people that are professionals of something, it probably means that they've gone down quite a traditional academic path to get there, which, as we know, can be really problematic and inaccessible for some of us. So all I mean by that is that, like, yeah, don't be intimidated by so-called professionals. Your knowledge and your experience is just as valid as someone else's, even if you're a newbie. And actually, new perspectives on things are extremely important. So even the more reason to speak about that subject in public, because you're going to offer a new perspective than someone that's been rambling on about it for the past 30 years. And it's no disrespect for them, but there's plenty of room for new thinkers and new minds in whatever subject area you were thinking about speaking about. Eliminate imposter syndrome. Easier said than done. I know it exists. It's in us all. It's definitely in me as well. But again, just my best advice for this is just get it in the bin and get rid of it. And it closely aligns with what I was just saying about professionalism and what that means. So especially if you're new to the field, or if your identity is oppressed in that field, or if it's been a difficult field to get into, you might start to get these feelings of imposter syndrome. Just remind yourself that there's no such thing as a professional, and that your thoughts and opinions are valid no matter what, and just go for it. And we have to do that a lot. I'm constantly having to remind myself, you know. Okay, that was the first little section. Let me do a time check. Cool, we're good. So the next kind of thing that I wanted to speak about is the aim of the talk. So now we've found our passions, or at least been encouraged to pursue our passions. I think the next thing to like define and to think about is the actual aim of the talk, or what the context is. So the first thing is the context. Public speaking can be really formal, and it can be really planned, and it can be part of like something like a conference or a program or a festival, and it can feel super formal. And that is definitely one way of speaking about your practice or whatever it is, subject, you know, whatever thing. But there's also informal ways of speaking about your passion, subject, and spreading the word. And it can be in fleeting conversations. It can be with friends, family. It can be with professionals in the same area. It can be at co-working spaces, bumping into people. There are loads of other like aspects in our life where it will call for us to like speak about our passion, and it's a good thing to also be ready for those situations, and they require completely different preparation skills. These conversations are not planned. However, having like, I'm going to speak about this a little bit later, but having like keywords and phrases and ways that we talk about our passion is really useful at those times. Like, I know it's really cheesy, but the fact that I'm able to call myself a creative computing artist and educator is something that it's like a slogan, almost like a tagline that I find myself saying a lot, because it does summarize what I do. And it's really good for those conversations where somebody just says, what do you do actually? What do you care about? And I can say, well, actually, I'm a blah, 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 and I do this, this, and this, like really quickly. And then, of course, context-wise, as I said, you've got the other end of the spectrum, which is these really formal planned talks, which I can definitely talk about too. But I just wanted to remind you that it exists in other areas as well. So yeah, I've kind of gone over this. So we've got the general talk, and then we've got a specific aspect of practice. So in the world of these formalized talks now, more planned talks that are part of something, I wanted to, there are probably more, but I just wanted to cover the two key ways of delivering. So a general talk to me is when somebody invites you or you invite yourself and they just say, tell us about you. They want to know about you and your general practice, which might be super multidimensional, you know, depending on what you are. You might be a researcher, an activist, and an artist, for example. And if someone invites you to do a general talk, they kind of want to know a little bit of everything, and they want to know a little bit about you. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of yourself into it as well. Or you might get called to speak about a very specific aspect of your practice. And I think it's good to know the difference between the two things, because if you're being asked to talk about something quite specific, no way in that hour are you going to be able to cram everything else in. So it's understanding when to set those boundaries and get rid of other things. So if I get asked to do an artist talk, I very quickly cover what I do on a day-to-day, what my current roles are, what I did before that, what I'm researching at the moment, what I'm working on at the moment, and what I care about. However, sometimes I might get called to for example, I spoke at a festival, it was a virtual reality festival, and they wanted me very specifically to speak about the role of avatars in virtual reality spaces. When I went to that festival and delivered that talk, I didn't speak about the fact that I work in education, really. I didn't speak about all the other things I'm researching because it wasn't relevant. So know what is wanted from you and try to deliver like in response to that. Which leads me on to the next point, which is considering the audience as well, which will really help with the aim. So is it an academic audience? Is it a young audience? It's so nice delivering talks to like young people, like college students or younger, but you've got to deliver in a little bit of a different way. I'm not promoting the idea of code switching. I'm actually really anti that. However, quite obviously you will deliver in a slightly different way if you're talking to like 13-year-olds or like senior academics from the film field, you know? So know your audience. This audience, for example, to me, I didn't know much about it before I came in, but I can imagine that you're probably going to be some sort of creative or thinker or tinker or something. And I knew there was going to be a mix of ages, but I knew that no one would be like under 16. Otherwise, I'd have probably been told about it. So I think just, yeah, knowing your audience in general and again, responding to that will help you like build the talk. Next step is the format. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about like how to actually deliver them in quite a physical way. So first of all, the format of the talk can be, and in some ways should be, complementary to your practice. So if you are a filmmaker, there is no harm in having a talk that fits the film genre. There might be a script for it. It might be delivered in a video format. You might want to send a pre-recorded film in. I think that would be quite cool. You know, you can like challenge things and ask for things that fit you better. If you're a poet, what would happen if your artist talk was a poem that you read out every time you got asked to deliver an artist talk? I obviously am creative computing artist. So my talks sometimes make use of like the internet. And I've delivered talks like that I've made that are inside games before, or like inside VR worlds, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, don't be, if you're a singer, why not sing the artist talk? I don't know. But yeah, I think it's quite nice if your talk is complementary to you, who you are as a person as well. So another thing about me is that I'm quite informal. I'm formal when I need to be, but really and truly, I don't really believe in like formalities and code switching, and like I hate dry environments, to be honest, just in general. So I'm always myself. I'm always like super friendly, super informal, and I would like never change that. It's just what my practice is. If you invite me to speak, I think you know what you get in, and it's okay for like you to do the same and have that same agency over how you deliver.
I never understood how to use them, and then once I did.
And then another thing was consistency. You don't have to do this. This is just like a thing that I was thinking about. But it can help build an identity. If we speak about like quite binary like brand building right now, one thing that you have to do is be consistent in the identity like of yourself or your subject matter, and you can actually, that can seep into public speaking. So if you have a particular way that you deliver or a particular aesthetic to your like PowerPoints or whatever they are, it can help build the brand identity. So as I said, that won't be relevant for everybody, but if you're a designer or maybe someone more visual, or if you've got a visual identity, it could be a color scheme, it could be a certain font, typeface, use it when you're public speaking, and it's going to like build the brand in a stronger way. So consistency can really help there. And then I've just kind of listed some software that might be helpful in getting you started for the more formal talks that are a little bit more like this, you know, pre-planned, and there might be an expectation to have some sort of presentation ready. And actually, a disclaimer is don't be afraid to not have a presentation. It's okay sometimes to not. I was tempted to do this one without one actually, and then I was like, no, I think it would be helpful. But don't be afraid to just go in and talk if that's how you work better. I think a lot of the time people have presentations, but it's like an unwritten rule that we could definitely like unwrite. But anyway, if you do want to do a presentation, Google Slides is great. It does the job. It's free. If you've got access to the Office suite, again, PowerPoint, it's been around forever. It does the job. It's there. There's nothing wrong with using those things. You've also got Keynote that's built into Mac. Again, nothing wrong with it. Does the job. Canva is fantastic. That's what I make my decks on. It's free. You can pay for Canva Pro if you want, but you can definitely get by on the free version. I would say just try it out. I'm not here trying to sell Canva to you, but I do think it's a really accessible way to like design things beyond presentations. To be honest, it's a really good free design tool. But it really helps me in just like putting quick presentations together. And then, you know, if you are more of a designer, if you want to use the Adobe suite, if you've got access to the Adobe suite, of course, Adobe, I would say probably not Illustrator. What's the other one? The other one that's not Illustrator, I always get them confused. But yeah, Adobe Not photo, yes, Photoshop, but there's another one that's really good for presentations. It's going to bug me now, actually.
Paste. Is it paste?
No,
You know, paste?
InDesign.
But InDesign is like next level.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's more like if you happen to already be a designer. But yeah, the Adobe Suite can be cool for making like presentations if you're that way out. And then, yeah, the last point is experimental. So as I said, I've like really experimented with talks before because I get bored. And also like I work with computers, like it's natural. So as I said, like just to give you some ideas, I've led a talk in a game before, done one in Minecraft, and I've done one in Second Life. And I've done a decision-based talk. It was like a game and the audience chose what happened next. And I've also done a talk that I delivered just straight from my desktop. So I just had files arranged on the desktop and just opened those in a particular order and expanded in that way. And I'm sure that all of your amazing brains in the room could think of way more like ways of being experimental with the way that we deliver talks. And it's good to do that, not only because it's fun, but also because it kind of it challenges norms and expectations. Like we don't all work in this binary way, and having the confidence to work in a way that suits you is good for the industry, you know. But also no pressure. Maybe try a few normal ones first and then experiment, or just go for it, whatever feels right. Cool. I've just got like a little bit more, by the way, just so you know, for time. So I wanted to speak a little bit about accessibility. There will be way more than this. It's obviously not my profession, but I feel like there's an element of responsibility in being generally accessible that comes along with all of us in life, you know, but there'll be way more than this for sure. But I think the starting points that I would say is, of course, colour in a really simple way. It's really easy to over-design our presentations, which is cool for aesthetics, but then really quickly you can start to isolate people that have different needs. And one way that that's easily done is through the colour choice. So just try to make sure that you're using like high contrasting colours. The more similar the type and the background, the harder it is to see. And I mean, that's quite obvious. And again, with typeface and font as well, it can be really great and cool to use cool fonts, but then the readability often, it's kind of like a scale, and the cooler the font, the less the readability, generally speaking. So again, just be mindful of who your audience is, how accessible you want it to be, and does the priority of that typeface come before maybe someone that's got a learning difficulty or difficulty seeing or whatever it may be. Does that typeface come before them being able to access the presentation? And try to just find a happy medium, I would say. Image to text ratio is another really good one. People can get really intimidated by lots of text on a screen. But then at the same time, having only images is not great. It's good to have like descriptions and bullet points for people that enjoy having that clarification and those tangible, even if they're just keywords to hang on to whilst we are speaking. So again, it's just a balance, I think. And then of course, on the note of images, like we're doing really well here, like having descriptions and alternative text is a way of just like being super accessible with our presentations. And yeah, then you can also speak to the organizers about things. You can ask them and challenge them, like, are you going to be live captioning? Is there going to be any translations available? Is it going to be recorded? And we can normalize asking for these things. If we hold a certain standard of accessibility and we don't feel like our host does, challenge them and get them to put these things in place. And yeah, sorry, there's one more, length and breaks. So like that can also be an accessibility thing. People that have like shorter attention spans or just need time out between long periods of focus for a multitude of reasons. So if it is a longer talk, pop some breaks in, or if it can be shorter, don't be afraid to make it shorter and leave more room for discussion and thinking. Notes on the actual speaking part. I'm on that note, what I just said as well, I'm very nearly done now. Just a few more tips. So yeah, this is just on the actual delivery. I got to this point and I was like, oh, I haven't done anything about how to actually talk. So I would say like having summaries of keywords and key phrases can be really helpful. So as I said, there will definitely be sentences that I repeat across the talks, and the more you talk in public, the more you'll find yourself saying them, and that's not a bad thing. That's probably a good sign. It means that you're being consistent and that you're getting used to using that muscle almost. Timing, it takes practice. I would say the only way to get good at timing is through practice. Do not beat yourself up if your first 2 or 3 talks are way too short or way too long. It's really normal. Of course, I would say like check the time as you go on. Try not to do it too much, but like I just think we really need to normalize doing things like checking your watch when you're speaking. Like, we're not magicians. I'm going to check the time right now, genuinely, to know what time it is, because it's okay. Like, I don't know what time it is. I've just been speaking for the last half an hour. So it's okay to check the time and try to keep yourself in check. But as I said, also expect to run over or under the first few times, and that's fine. And then probably the most important thing I'm going to say today, as cheesy as it is, be yourself. And as soon as you rock up somewhere and try to be someone else, you're going to find that you find it more difficult. It might feel right to do it because I'm very aware of oppression and being uncomfortable in our identities, not because we want to be, but because the world makes us feel like that. So I understand this instinct to switch it up a bit and to fit in. I get it. And if it's a safety thing, for sure, go for it. But if it's more of an oppression thing, try to fight that instinct and show up as yourself, because it's going to be harder to stay in character as somebody else as you get through the talk. So just make everyone know who you are from the first instance, and then the only person you have to be consistent with is yourself. So yeah, make space for yourself. And yeah, around like anxiety and shyness and all of those kind of nerves that we get, they're going to be there. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, don't be anxious, because that's not real. Like, we're going to get butterflies, we might get nervous, we might even stutter a little bit, we might start to sweat. All of these things happen. Let them happen to your body, feel them, notice them, make friends with them. Just don't let them stop you doing what you're doing. You can deliver a talk.
No silk. No silk. I always recommend not to wear silk. I mean, not that we all wear silk, but it's worth checking, because sometimes you have like some kind of synthetic clothes and you think, oh, this is synthetic, but actually it's not. It's sometimes it happens that you go in a vintage shop and you have this kind of like amazing silk actually that you're wearing, and then you end up with like schluck, you know, like it's kind of
1,000%.
I don't know if that happened to you, Jazmin, but this is one of these moments, literally.
1,000%. I'm so glad you said that, actually. It's so true. Like, but it just shows that these things are going to happen. It's really normal to get those nerves and to sweat and to mess up sometimes. Like, it's so okay. It's just about not letting that stop you in your tracks. And yeah, if it's about wearing a different outfit because you know you're going to sweat, that is better than not showing up to the talk at all. So yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, just befriend these emotions, you know. And then, yeah, I wanted to speak a little bit, just very briefly, on like monetizing the speaking. This is optional. I think it really depends like where you're at with things and what your intentions are. But I'm just going to cover it really quickly, because I don't think that we speak about money enough in Britain, to be honest. It's like a cultural thing. So I'm trying to like challenge that. So the first step is understanding what your intentions are. Now, in the creative world, labor is really casualized, and I think too often we do work for free. However, especially when it comes to public speaking, I can completely understand doing it for free. Some public talks I've done for free, for sure. If it's a really good crowd and a really good place to get your voice heard, I get it, you know, do it for free and don't feel bad about doing it for free. But I just wanted to remind you all that there is also money in this industry, and don't let people take the mick, if that makes sense. So I think it's for you to know first what your intentions are. And if your intentions are to get paid, then don't be afraid to monetize this. Or if someone is approaching you and expecting something from you, you can expect a fee, even if it's a small one. Some questions that are good to ask yourself if you're trying to work out the whole money thing: are they asking for new material? If they're asking for new material on a really niche aspect of your practice, like I kind of was saying earlier, bit more money. If they're asking for a general artist talk or something that you've spoke about a lot in the past and you've already got the presentation, you can lower the fee a little bit. Know the difference between a talk and a workshop, because there's a huge difference. Don't deliver a workshop at a talk rate, and don't give someone a workshop by accident at a talk rate. Like, talks are great and the fees for them can be quite small or big, but it's okay if they're kind of small because we are just kind of, you know, logging on and talking. A workshop is completely different. You should have really different rates for those things. I just wanted to like remind you of that. The length, obviously, are they asking for a half an hour talk, a 1 hour talk, or a 3 hour talk? And if it's a 3 hour talk, it's probably going to be a workshop. So just be mindful of that. And then, yeah, another one, which is new, this is like a post-pandemic question, really, but is it remote or in real life? Because I've now found that I've got 2 separate rates for those now. Remote, I personally will do for a little bit less because I don't have to move. But if they're expecting me to like go somewhere, you've got to think about the commute time, potentially the travel costs. And for me, traveling also makes me anxious. So I'm also thinking about the toll on my mental health. My fee goes up a little bit more for an in real life talk. So also ask yourself that question maybe these days as well. And then, yeah, you might have some personal considerations as well. So as I said, like for me, there are definitely some, and you might have some. So is it an institution that you've always wanted to be affiliated with? If so, you might do it for a bit less. You know, we're all different. So there might be some things that like you want to consider. And then, yeah, my last little section are just general tips and tricks. And then I promise I will stop speaking and we can chat about this for a bit. So yeah, general tips and tricks: reuse material. Don't feel bad for doing that. It's so normal. Reuse the presentations, reuse sentences, reuse phrases. You can even deliver entire talks again at new places. It's a small world, but it's also a really big world. And if it's not the same audience, there's no shame in reusing material. Plan first. I know it sounds boring, but if you are making a presentation, I would recommend writing a general structure first and maybe thinking about the sections and the structure of it, and then going and making the deck. Or if you're not making a deck and you're just going to talk, that's fine, but you might want to just have a bit of an idea about the structure and when you're going to touch on certain things. Record them. If the company are not recording it, record it yourself, because you might want to watch it back. Don't become obsessive over that and be like, oh my gosh, I said 5 times. Not for that reason, but it's good to like know what you said and maybe look at points of improvement, things you did well. And also recorded talks become these kind of capsules of almost like, it could be sellable material, or it could just be something that you give away in future, something that you circulate. If someone asks you, what do? You could send them a video. Well, actually, I did this talk last week and it sums it up really well. There you go. So yeah, record them. And of course, have fun. Again, like the be yourself thing, this is the second, but on par with first most important thing I'm going to say, which is have fun with it. Be yourself and have fun, and try not to take it too seriously, because I think we all just need to be a bit more lighthearted, really. So yeah, that is everything from me. And sorry if it was a tiny little bit too long, but yeah, I'm done.
That was amazing. It was an amazing presentation. I mean, so thorough, so practically orientated, like honestly, fantastic insights. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I mean, honestly, like, you know, and the nails as well. I mean, can I just say, can we see these beautiful nail?
Yeah, of course.
You want to describe them as well? They have like a all moon seam, don't they?
They're a lot, yeah. So they're super long. We've got some nice navy blue tips with like a lot of silver, a lot of diamonds. There's a lot going on them.
I mean, this is pure artistry, just like your talk. So everyone, this is the time where we can ask some question to Jazmin, and actually, you know, we can share some, you know, like I can see that someone, Lucrecia, you want to talk. I can see that on the screen. Tell us, what is it that you want to ask, Jazmin?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get the little emoji with the hand on the screen, but I couldn't find it. So thank you for like calling me in. Yeah, my question was, because a lot of times to talk in public, it takes quite a lot of confidence, and as well to just like nourish your ideas in order to be able to talk about them. So I don't know if you have any recommendations for like self-help books or talks or something like that to you know, to get that confidence.
To get that confidence, good question. And someone else might have like a more tangible way, like as you said, maybe like a book or something. But my instant response to that question is that the confidence comes from the subject matter. Once you are confident in your subject, in your passion, or whatever it is that you want to start speaking about, work with that confidence first. And once you feel like a boss of your passion subject, remember the fact that I said there's no such thing as professional, and remember about erasing imposter syndrome. So with that in mind, once you feel like a boss of your subject, it will be a lot easier to speak about it in public. I'm not saying it solves everything. Of course, there is an element of, you know, like confidence that does come with it, I suppose, in terms of like being in a crowd and projecting your voice and all of these practical things. But trust me, if you are confident in your pizzazz or whatever it is, you will have that agency to just be like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to speak to you a lot about it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And also rehearsal is super important. Like repeat, like play with family member, I don't know, flatmates, all of that. Like just repeat. Because actually it might be silly. Like sometimes people just say to me, like, why are you talking to me about your talk or whatever? But then the more you do it with them, they are the most difficult audience, to be honest. Because the people you're going to have in the room, you don't know them, to be really frank. But the people you know are probably the most difficult one to kind of convince. Like my mom is the worst, for example. I don't know about you, Jazmin, but it's like my mom is like, your voice is so horrible. It's so loud. You don't know how to move, you know, like she's like so critical. It's unbelievable. So it really, I always start with her, you know, if I can nail the mother, then I'm done, you know, like then we can go through every single thing, you know. So just like maybe doing some repeats again and again, you know, and with your peers, you know, as well.
That's such a good point, actually. And remember what I said about like different contexts. So it doesn't have to be that you are delivering a whole hour-long presentation to a family member or a friend, but subtly speaking about things with them in a particular way is practice, definitely, even if it just takes 5 minutes.
All right. I'll take note on that. Oh, sorry. My screen just went like crazy.
Actually, but it's good. I realized I didn't need to share that anymore, so it's good that that's disappeared. Okay, thank you for your question.
Thank you for your talk.
So do we have any more question coming up? So Kieran, I think Kieran, what do you say about it? Be yourself. Kieran, do you want to pop on our screen to share these words of wisdom with everyone? since we are talking about our passion topic. Karen Cotter, calling you in right there. No. Okay.
I think Nadina has a hand up. I'm not sure if you're confident coming on the mic, Nadina.
Yeah, that's fine. I was getting a cramp actually.
Where I can see you though. I
It's
couldn't
on the emoji thing.
Yeah.
Hello, Nadina.
Hi, Nelly. Hi, Jazmin. Thanks,
Hello.
Jazmin, for the talk. That was really, really helpful and really practical. Like I can already, there's so many things I can just apply straight away, I know. I did have a question about what's the best way to prepare for a presentation? Because I've done a couple and I never know whether I should memorize everything or just keywords or key sentences. I find that I think I'll try both and it's both tricky.
Okay.
To nail it, really.
Great question, actually. I like that. I mean, I'm quite controversial and I'm opinionated, so I'm gonna say it how I see it. Someone else might say something different, but the first thing I would say is absolutely scrap the idea of trying to bloody memorize anything. I think it just adds extra stress and there's no need, and it can also add a robotic nature to your talk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, which isn't that accessible for the audience actually. So my kind of tip for that though is not necessarily to write a script or to have even notes, but it's to have on the actual slide, the presentation that you're showing, it's to have just enough, not only for the audience, but for you to remember what to speak about. So those key words or those key phrases, hopefully should be just enough. To the audience, it's going to look like a kind of subject heading or a summary of what you've said, which it is. But for you, it can also be a signpost of, right, okay, on this slide, I'm supposed to touch about the cats, the dogs, and the stars. Cool, great. So I would actually use your visual, like physical presentation as the main point of like keywords of where to start, what you should be covering, how to structure it. All of those things can kind of exist within that. And then if you need a little bit of extra support, especially if you're first starting out in this area or if it doesn't come as naturally to you, of course you can have some notes as well. And I would like to say, again, as I said with checking the time, let's normalize looking at our notes. Don't be embarrassed. Now, it's not amazing if we stand up there and spend the entire time with our heads in a piece of paper. However, if that is something that you genuinely need to do to get your voice heard, I think it would be a better world if we lived in an environment where that was okay. Because really and truly, like, eye contact with the audience is great, but eye contact for some people is really, really difficult, even just in normal conversation, never mind on a stage with hundreds of people in front of them. So again, of course, this takes a certain element of like agency and confidence, but I would also just like to open the door to challenging these conventions that we have about what public speaking looks like. Because if I went to a public talk and somebody delivered good content, and if they were reading from a page the whole time, I wouldn't care, because I'd think, do you know what? Maybe that's just something that they needed to do to get their voice heard. So yeah, don't put yourself in a box. It'd be nice to see the industry change a little bit. And yeah, looking at different ways of doing things.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. That was really helpful then, especially the bit about normalizing not doing things in the way that's supposed to be the norm, because who's to say that the norm is right anyway?
Yeah, I mean, what is wrong with reading from a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why there's this unwritten rule about don't let people know that you're checking the time or checking your notes. And I don't know why this exists, because we all know that we are checking the time in our notes, you know? We're humans.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, Jazmin.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
with that in mind, we're going to thank Jazmin for this incredible presentation. We're going to remind you that there is a creative grant available through Tour de Moon, which is a festival that we are directing together with Majid, actually. And I'm just going to like do this kind of like, oh my God, there is my WhatsApp actually on that Firefox. We might see a beauty call appearing on the screen. Oh, let's go quick. Let's go quick. There you go. Like I'm just sharing with you actually where you can find them, but there is like specifically the Moonbar talks that are available where you can speak about your passion project. Even if you're not based in the UK, there is definitely an opportunity to also share your expertise if you're interested, to share an experiment and do your first public talk. This might be the time to do it. And we can, share it around. I'm gonna do a bit of a testing here, and that's the moment where Majid arrived actually. So Jazmin, I don't know about you, but like, you know, like I'm always a bit experimenting with things. I'm gonna try this time to make it work. I'm gonna stop this recording, thank everyone, and tell you all that you can catch up Jazmin again online on YouTube, on the Tour de Moon YouTube, also University of the Underground YouTube and Union of Justice YouTube. It's like total YouTube, integration of Jazmin Morris right there.